So my name's Alan. I am a junior in the Orphe department. And right now I'm in Princeton, New Jersey. It's been a really eventful, interesting virtual semester, but I'm really glad that we're kind of getting towards the end of it right now.
I'm Christian Potter. I am a junior zooming in from Virginia, where I'm from. I'm majoring in the Princeton School of Public and International Affairs, and I'm a proud PAA of Maddie College.
The first question I have for you is about COVID-19 and the role of USG. So COVID-19 planning and the spring semester is obviously an issue on every student's mind.
And we're wondering what you think USG's role should be when it comes to overarching university decisions like the ones we anticipate in December, and how you would evaluate USG's efforts this semester and past year to incorporate student viewpoints into those processes.
Yeah, so to answer the question, is starting very big picture, I really see two big roles of USG. First, being able to respond to students' needs, academic policy, students' social, emotional well-being. USG's first and foremost role is to be able to hear those needs and leverage its relationships with administrators to put those on the agenda. And the second thing more broadly is creating a good model for engaging with the student body. And so for me, that means having more opportunities to engage with administrators, making students more aware of the university committees that are doing the policy making that is impacting students. I really appreciate the focus groups, the town halls that we did in response to those decisions. I think that's something we should do in the future. And in fact, I would expand those to other types of issues.
So I would say two things about USG's role in assisting the university in planning around COVID-19. I'd say one thing that is really crucial to our role is helping students represent themselves. We are elected representatives, but at the same time, we really have to do our best to give students a platform to voice their own concerns to make sure that their voices are heard. We've done a pretty good job with that this fall. The USG set up focus groups over the summer. We set up Q&A sessions with top administrators, and that is definitely something that I would continue to set up with the administration going forward into next semester and the following semester. The other thing I'd say is that, there are some policy areas where it's our job as USG representatives to try to gather the student data and then transmit that and make some policy recommendations. And I can speak from experience on my committee, the academics committee, where I've worked with my committee to create best practice lists for how academics can functionally work during this remote virtual setting, and then also looking ahead to next semester in the hybrid setting as well.
And as another related question to the coronavirus pandemic,
If elected, how will you balance addressing students' short-term pandemic-related needs
along with some of the more long-term proposals on your platform?
I guess the first thing you mentioned, right, like addressing students' short-term pandemic-related needs, that's really the big job of USG next year. And I think we would be doing a disservice as an organization if we were prioritizing maybe what our own agenda is over what students' needs are in the moment. In terms of long-term proposals, I guess there are two things, right? A lot of my long-term proposals have to do with creating the right methods of engagement for students that will help USG address the former question. As I mentioned, like expanding the use of town halls and focus groups to collect student input, creating a database of all the faculty student committees and the student reps who sit on them. As the opportunities arise, I do want to advocate on issues like mental health equity, housing and dining on campus. Princeton's releasing its campus mobility plan. There definitely are conversations about accessibility on campus. So finding the opportunities when these conversations are already happening to provide our input is how I think I'm going to go about the long-term goals.
This is exactly what I've had to do as academics chair. So I came in, with a platform and was elected on this platform, but then all of a sudden COVID-19 happened and we had to respond to the immediate concerns. And so I was able to work with the administration, against some obstacles as well, to implement fair grading policies for the spring and the fall semesters. That said, we have not let go of our longer-term goals. And to give an example, mixed concentrations, which was a big topic in the last election, is something that we're really, really close to achieving with the administration in actually setting up ways for departments to get together really easily to form mixed concentrations. And the other issue was the retroactive PDF, which, has come up every single year, and we've never gotten this close to doing it. But right now, we're very, very close to getting that policy implemented. And again, I think it's a testament to the idea of really showing the administration, deal with immediate concerns right now. We're here to help you with that, but let's not let go of, longer term issues where we can all come back to campus and really see a better Princeton than we had before.
So our next question is about lawn parties.
The $80,000 price tag on virtual lawn parties was met with some widespread criticism directed toward USG from a lot of the student body.
What is your view on the decision to host the virtual Jason Derulo concert, as well as the student reaction it garnered?
Yeah, I think this is a really tricky issue. Personally, I was not involved in any decisions surrounding lawn parties as the USG academics chair, so this was not sort of within my USG purview. Look, I think a lot of people enjoyed the concert when it happened, but at the same time, the price tag really was very high. And I think for a lot of people, that was very dissonant during COVID-19. Resources like that can be put to various uses and potentially better uses. My understanding is that there were contractual issues involved, and so I think it's really important for USG to, uphold its obligations under the Constitution and also under contracts. That being said, I think the best thing we can do is look forward to next semester. And, while we want to get lawn parties up and running as soon as possible when we're all back on campus, I think it's really important for USG to learn from this experience, listen to students about what they think are appropriate uses of these types of funds, really be a little more transparent about the budget next time around.
I think any member who was on Senate who participated, who was part of that unanimous vote, should take responsibility for that decision. Whatever positive, negative repercussions it had and however it was perceived, we should be taking responsibility for that. The student reaction to it kind of speaks of some larger issues that USG needs to address in terms of having more student engagement in budgeting and social planning. One thing I would do as president is to have sustained initiatives that explain, like, what does the USG budget do? What kind of events are we hosting this year? And then, in terms of like the spring, looking at social events, I would want to get direct student input on what the best use of that money would be. At the end of the day, it is our responsibility to create engagement with the work we do, especially on budgeting. And so that's one thing I will seek to do in the future if I'm elected.
Yeah, and this next question is sort of along very similar lines and similar lines to something you were describing before in your platform, but
Do you think students at large know how USG operates and what the roles of various committees and positions are? If not, why not?
and how will you work to change that?
My short answer to this question would be no. Generally speaking, students probably aren't aware of, the day-to-day work that USG does. There are several ways that I would plan to go about addressing this. The first thing that I mentioned is having the directory of the faculty student committees and the student reps on them. I think that's important because a lot of pretty high stakes decisions this year were made on issues like grading, certainly over the summer, Princeton's new sexual misconduct policies. A second thing, just in terms of creating more awareness of USG's work, we really should be publishing our meeting agendas, well in advance. And so even saying this weekend, we're going to host X administrator to talk about this issue, and we're going to vote on the budget, putting that in our newsletter and just making that very public is another thing I will strive to do. I will say a final thing, and I kind of had mentioned this also, creating sustained campaigns around different areas of USG's work, budgeting, referenda approval. These are actually pretty high impact aspects. They really drive some of the conversations that are happening on campus. So just being very proactive about explaining what our role is in those things.
Yeah, I think this is a great question. I think the answer is no. I think a lot of people don't know the way USG works and a lot of the things we do in the committees we sit on and things like that. I would say that this year, this was a focus of Chitra's administration, and the U counselors made some great graphics about how USG works, and I was part of updating the website to reflect all the different committees so that you could see all the committees and all the members of the committees up on our website, and I think that's a big step in the right direction. But I think honestly the most important thing to do is just to keep communicating, number one, so talking to the prince, talking to your friends, and the second thing, which I think is really related, is just bringing more voices in. I roughly doubled the size of the academics committee at the beginning of this year because I felt these times called for a lot more perspectives in the room, and I also think that more perspectives is a really good thing for the health of the student body and for USG.
So our next question is about grading and your platform specifically. So in your candidate bio, you note that you led initiatives as academics chair to ensure all departments allowed PDF grading for requirements last spring. This semester, though, departments were widely split, with 18 allowing the PDF option, 14 requiring A through F grading, and 4 having different policies with prerequisites and departmentals. What policy did you push for in this regard in the fall? And if that policy was not adopted, what went wrong?
The policy that I pushed as academics chair and the policy that we collectively pushed as the academics committee was a uniform across the university optional PDF approach, which is exactly the same policy that we pushed and then implemented in the spring. All of these interactions, and every time we work with the administration, it's all about getting the best outcomes for the student body, and oftentimes that involves compromise. My sense of the situation was that the general tenor in a lot of parts of other stakeholders in the school, including the administration, was that some sort of return to normal in the grading policy might be warranted. And frankly, a lot of our peer institutions, I think most of our peer institutions, have gone back to a completely normal grading policy with no PDF options at all. I think that the best thing we could do is try to meet somewhere in the middle, and I'm really proud of the work that we did to do that. And I'm really, grateful to the administration for, giving us a seat at that table, which originally we didn't have. I had to fight pretty hard for that. The thing I'd note, though, again, is that the policy that did end up happening is radically different from that sort of return to normal grading policy and what a lot of our peer institutions are doing. So the PDF cap has been continuously suspended, right? So any course that you take for PDF will not count against your 4 total in terms of Princeton's requirements for graduation.
And then as the last question we had, so in your capacity as a U counselor, you attended CPUC meetings heavily centered around the university's ongoing efforts to address systemic racism. If elected, how would you ensure that a diverse set of student voices are elevated within both conversations surrounding racial equity and in dialogue between USG and the administration at large?
The USG president often has the informal power to, make recommendations to committees. So, like, the president will forward students' names for a lot of CPUC subcommittees that are often doing work on issues like racial equity. One thing I will need to do as president is reach out to students who have been very involved in activism on campus around racial equity, or students who have been very invested in that issue, develop those relationships, and when there is an opportunity to make, appointments or recommendations for these committees, drawing on these relationships.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. That was the last question that I had. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Zach.
Have a good one.
All right, you too.